Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is sort of Convallaria time. I just got back from Cancun, and while I was there, I had this thought of something fun to do, and it is all centered around buffs. And what can I do to buff my new toy Momo to do some fun amounts of damage? And you may say, that's fun for you. Cool. Why do I care? Well, you should care because of the leaky leaks that we got that tell us that Tower of Adversity is coming. What's the connection? Why does that matter? Well, very simply, that's going to be our hard content to come. And as you get this hard content, you're going to be pulling characters to overcome these challenges, to do your best damage, so forth and so on. But if you just toss these characters into your roster onto the battlefield and you don't think about synergies, you don't think about buffs, you don't think about debuffs even from the other side of the fence, then you're not going to be bringing your best potential and you might find yourself blocked. And so for fun, like I said, I did this with Momo earlier today. I wanted to drop her into something, difficult, if you will, and just see what I could do to build around her and have some fun. I'm going to show this to you. I'm going to pull up the battle replay and I'm going to walk you through why I picked who I picked and what they did for her and why they were important to the strategy that I was going with. So let's get into the game. And you're going to find me on my screen here. All right, let's jump into the characters. We're going to look at Momo at her base kind of value here for how I have her built. Level 59, getting close to 60. Her base magic attack damage is 2591. I've got the wand that increases the range. This helps with Doomwaken. I've also got Hunter's Intuition, which makes more damage when alert skill is triggered. And I've got Destruction of Tower, which unfortunately I don't have one that has the added fourth stat over here. But when it's not my turn, I do an increased damage of 20%. So I'm already assigning her items that are going to help buff her in the way I want to use her. And that's important. Make sure that your items do for your character what you want to use them for. And then on Doomwaken, the big thing here is she gets to attack 3 times as people move into that alert range, and it's worth 70% of magic damage. Now, as it stands, it doesn't sound impressive on paper. You got 2591 as the damage, as I mentioned, 70% of that. I'm not going to do the math off the top of my head, but it's not massive. But we're going to buffer. And so let's go find this battle replay because I want to show you the people that I picked and what they do for her specifically. So here we are up here, Terror Residual 3, you see I've got Magnus, Rawia, Gloria, and Coco. So a really strong team. I'm not even running a traditional healer. I'm going to use Coco effectively for that. So let's dive in, and hopefully I can pause it right away and show you kind of base value with all characters in play. And so let's get it past this, and okay, hopefully this will let me now. Nope, not quite. I gotta go a little bit further. I hate these replays sometimes. Here we go. Okay, so why do I have who I have? All right, so first I've got Magnus. Magnus is here largely for his aura. So he's got the kind of very common attack plus 10%, defense plus 20%, and decreased damage taken by 10% if healthy. And also he nullifies the negative effects of injured, which means that as Momo takes damage, if she hasn't had a chance to attack or heal, she's not getting that decreased damage dealt. So for this, it's important because Momo is going to get hit on occasion. Even with a tank, or actually a couple tanks sitting here, I don't want to lose any of her damage output because of the injured status. So he's here, again, for the aura side. Same thing with Rawia. So Rawia has the Sword of Convallaria aura, and for this, again, you don't get the double up on the attack defense one, so that's just another generic, but you get the 8% damage dealt. You also get 8% damage decrease, which is helpful, but not necessarily why I'm bringing her. And then you have Gloria. Gloria has your typical Gloria type buffs. So she's got, as you walk in, she does her little flag thing or whatever and gives you the buffs there. And then what I do pretty quickly, you're going to see this, is I'm going to cast the Longinus Brilliance, and I'm going to throw down the Lance, because once you throw down the Lance, you're going to be getting the extra 15% attack and defense. And I've already given all the buffs from her. She does have the aura, but the aura doesn't happen to help Momo. So again, I'm not going to get a triple version of this attack, 10% defense, 20%, but she can grant, the buffs in the other ways. And then on Coco, Coco's got a really cool move where if you use her treasure chest and you use Snow Lotus, you're granting damage 3 and damage reduction 3 for 3 turns. So you can stick this on a character. You also have crit 2 and crit damage 1 via the Iron Pot Stew. So as we jump in here, my strategy is to turtle up in this particular map. Not because you can't go out and get to things, but I'm going to use my first couple turns to really buff myself out. I also brought Urgent Order for a trait. I brought the Warhorn because, again, it's not just a one-sided equation. As much as I buff myself, if I can debuff an enemy, they take more damage. And that, I think, is like a 60% reduction in defense or something like that. And I've got the flag, which I'll use earlier on in the fight just to kind of start things off. So let's dive in here. And you're going to see right away what I'm doing. I'm positioning people. I'm giving her that crit buff. Or excuse me, the damage buff. And as I noted, I'm dropping everything that's going to start really amping up her powers here. So we'll get through all of round 1 pretty quickly. And I'm going to show you what it starts looking like in round 2 as far as buffs go. And so remember, we were in the 2000s for attack damage when we were looking at just a kind of blank character sheet, if you will. And already she's like doing half the damage of that guy in one little hit there. Okay, so let me get to her now. Oh, I gotta let him axe the head. Let's let him do that. Yeah, look at that hit. And that's something to note too, is I'm not just buffing Momo. Yes, that's who I'm focusing on, so I'm giving her additional buffs, but a lot of the stuff I'm doing is actually helping everybody. You know what, let's let Gloria get her flag down, actually. We're going to get all these buffs on, then I want to show you what she looks like. So again, that gives the crit buffs. I'm going to take a hit over here, whatever, doesn't matter. And then Gloria should be, yeah, she's tossing her lance down. So we'll let this come through. And now I believe I should have everything buffed up. So now she's gone up to 5,000, almost 5,000 for her magic attack. But look at all these buffs. We have stacked the girl. And what we have going on right now, move 1 doesn't matter for what we're trying to mess with. Attribute debuff immunity is always good, but again, not what we're focused on here. So damage reduction 3, we've got a damage 3. This has given us 30% increased damage. Attack 1, Wish was attack 2. There's other characters you could bring that could do that, but I also wanted Gloria. Whatever. I've got Doom Waking giving me, you know, additional attack. Repulsion Barrier. You're going to see I'm at 4 stacks right now. You can stack this up to 5 times. That's also giving me increased attack. Crit 2. Bento doesn't do anything for this particular damage buff. Crit damage 1. Blood and Steel. This is what is keeping me from losing effectiveness when I'm injured. Fortitude. Again, it's just helping me when I'm healthy. And then Sword of Convallaria, I've got this Leader's Aura from Rawia, where I'm giving the extra damage. I've got the generic 1020 Leader's Aura, which most Leader Auras have, maybe all of them, I'm not sure. My flag is down, and I have a Flag of Convallaria. So I've got all of these buffs kicking into Momo. And think about it this way, she's going to go 4 times a turn, because she's going to have her 3 attacks for people coming into her alert area, and she's going to have, oops, can I get off the screen? And she's going to have her normal attack. So let's play this out a little bit. See what happens. Again, everyone else is still hitting harder because that's what's going to happen. And here we go. So that was a 6,300 hit. And let's see, I think this was bigger. Yeah, 8,400. So starting, I think it was a little bit over 2,000 on a blank character sheet. 70% magic damage on that move. So it's not 100%, it's not 120%. The base before you add in all of your buffs is 70%. And I think we said that she was at 4,800-ish for the buff damage, and she just crit for over 8,000. Now, will she crit every single time? No. But as she's sitting here critting, she's just doing monstrous damage. Now, that crit on that character is going to have higher defense. It's not going to be as much. But we got to hit him twice, and I think that was maybe 46, something like that. So, again, you're talking like 9,000 plus damage on that move alone. So this is, and we'll let this play out. You guys can see, you know, what I did throughout this entire thing, is that you do have to rebuff over a certain amount of time, things like that. But the point here is I want you to think about team building. Don't think about just putting the next meta unit on a field of battle and assuming they're going to do, you know, boatloads and buckets of damage by themselves. They will to a point, but when you start going against, higher enemies with more resistances or more gimmicks, whatever you want to call it, you're going to have to start thinking of ways to strengthen yourself and perhaps debuff them as well. So this is an example of that. Now this one is not a heavy debuff battle. I will use the War Horn a couple of times throughout the battle just to give myself a little bit of an edge. But you can also do things like bring Disaster Bottle, which you just saw Rawia toss on the character off to the left there. And you can have things like an Abyss or other characters who specialize in debuffs. And really in a perfect situation, if you will, you're going to have your characters who are doing the most damage output really supercharged buffed using things like the damage 3, attack 2s, whatever. And you're going to hopefully be debuffing the enemy to things like, physical damage or physical resistance down or magic resistance down or whatever. For example, I could have brought Edda into this fight, or Ida, and thrown down the liquor barrel, which makes the enemies take, I think it's maybe 40% more magic damage. I might be slightly off on that one. But either way, those are ways that you can then even increase the damage further just by also, like I said, thinking about the other side of the coin. So you're getting kind of closer towards the end of the battle here. So there's only a couple of characters left. And actually, I'm going to speed it up just a little bit so it doesn't take too long for you. But you're going to notice here, I'm going to have to rebuff, buffs last a certain amount of turns. And I am going to pull characters around to kill the, whatever that guy's called, the one in the middle there. Because he's just going to keep healing our friend on the bottom. But I've at this point gotten to the point that I'm safe. I'm in no real, risk of dying. I've got 2 tanks on the field. And Momo's basically a tank anyways, so kind of 3 tanks. And I've got all sorts of damage reduction going on. I've got all sorts of increased damage, so things will just die faster. And then you're going to see me use War Horn towards the end, and it's just going to do some very, very strong output when it's all said and done. Yeah, it'll teleport around here for a second. Now, this is not meant to be a guide on how to overcome the tarot challenge that I'm in here. Of course, if you have all the same characters, you absolutely can. But the point here is more just to say, hey, I thought it would be fun to take Momo and see if I can't get her alert damage to be stupid. And I think to go from the 2000 whatever, base sheet damage, 70% of that because of how the power works, all the way up to what I'm doing within this battle, I'm happy. It was a fun experiment. And you just saw Warhorn there, so watch what Magnus does. 15,000. He does a head splitter for or I think it's called Mountain Breaker, for 15,000 damage. So again, I'm actually buffing everybody, not just Momo. So that's a look at what you can do when you start thinking about buffs. The funny thing is, that's probably not even perfectly optimized. Again, I could have found somebody with an attack 2. I could have applied more debuffs, but at some points it does become overkill. Maybe I could have subbed this one character for another. But as you get into this harder content, or even just you're maybe coming to your level 60 journey, you're doing these higher end challenges from your daily missions or whatever, think about synergies, think about auras that apply, think about the kind of magic damage or physical damage you need to do. Look at all those things and stop thinking about units in a silo. Think about how you can combine them all, get your Power Rangers out, combine your Megazords, to your ultimate Megazord, and think of ways to really buff who is out there doing the damage, or even buff the people that are taking the damage, give them damage reductions and such, things of that nature. So look, I hope you enjoyed that battle, and I hope you learned a little bit about how to apply buffs to really maximize the output and efficiency of your characters. And if you wouldn't mind, a like and a sub on the video helps us out tremendously, and I'll see you on the next one.